everyone, I'm Michelle from A Common Life, and I have recently been sharing tips about how to handle living life with a child with a sensory processing disorder. This was a series that I started with my friend Tanya from Project Happy Home, and she has been sharing tips about ADHD. And I had one viewer comment and ask, what exactly is a sensory processing disorder? So I'm going to explain that to you in this video. First, I'm going to begin by sharing basically a medical definition of what sensory processing disorder is, and then I'm going to share with you how it looks in our family. I am not a medical professional. I am just a mom who has 2 children with sensory processing disorders. So everything that I'm telling you right now is not coming from a medical professional. I am just a regular old person. So if you do think that your child or someone that you know that you care about is really struggling with a sensory processing disorder, please go speak with your doctor. Sensory processing disorder is a condition of the brain where the individual has trouble receiving and responding to external stimuli that they are receiving through their 5 senses. There are some people who really need to be in a quiet environment and need soft fabrics and the labels cut off their clothing and things like that because they are very sensitive to external stimuli. There are other people who are called sensory seeking, and they actually seek out that stimuli. They like noise and they like things that they can rub and touch and things like that. And so there are definitely different levels and ways that people can have these responses and the way that they receive these stimuli. Some people with a sensory processing disorder are very overly sensitive to external stimuli. So something that is just a normal sound for us, like going into a grocery store or the mall or something like that. While it may be a little bit noisier than, being at home by yourself, it doesn't bother us as much as it would bother someone with a sensory processing disorder. For them, it is like, just yelling and screaming and noise is bouncing off all the walls, and it is just so loud, and it actually becomes painful for them. There are several other things that those with sensory processing disorder may have. They may be uncoordinated. They may not know how to feel their limbs in their own space. I know that kind of sounds a little bit odd for someone who, can reach out their hand and know where their hand is, but there is actually a condition where they really don't know where their limbs are going or what they're doing, and they kind of lack a personal space. They would tend to bump into things all the time. And they also struggle with intersocial reactions and conversations. They just have a very hard time. They can't read facial expressions some of the time. And so that definitely changes the way a conversation goes. They can't read body language some of the time. It just obviously depends on the person. There are different ranges and different hypersensitivities and things like that for each person. No 2 people with sensory processing disorder are the same. Sensory processing disorder may affect just one sense. For example, someone may just be sensitive to hearing. And then there are others with sensory processing disorders who everything around them is overwhelming. It's sound and touch and taste and anything that they can see, bright lights, things like that. And so for those type of people, it is much harder to function. Children with sensory processing disorders usually start out as very fussy babies. And so they cry all the time. And as they grow up, they tend to have more meltdowns. They have temper tantrums, and they just do not go from one thing to another very easily. They have a very difficult time with transition. For an individual to be diagnosed with a sensory processing disorder, their symptoms have to be very severe. It isn't a diagnosis that doctors just throw around. There has to be a period of time where this is happening constantly. They are struggling with just the day-to-day life. They are having meltdowns. They are having panic attacks, hyperventilating, all these types of things. And at that point, when they've been able to see that over time these things have happened and maybe have even gotten worse, at that point, an individual will be diagnosed with a sensory processing disorder. While medical professionals have not found an exact cause for a sensory processing disorder, there are several theories that are going around. Now, some of them are that some people just have an abnormal brain. They are neuroatypical and they respond to external stimuli in a very different way. It actually causes their brain to light up differently than it would for another person. There was another study that also showed that for some reason, those who are more sensitive to light tend to have a sensory processing disorder. Now, even though they haven't really figured out where it all came from, they have developed many wonderful techniques for working with those who have sensory processing disorders. The treatment for sensory processing disorder is called sensory integration. So basically, a person will work with a therapist one-on-one. If they're younger, then it will be through play and things like that to help them basically learn how to understand their own reactions and to cope with negative reactions and things like that. Also, there are some people with sensory processing disorders who struggle with speech, and so for those people, they will be in speech therapy as well. A lot of times, therapy will be shared between the parent and the child. So you will have an occupational therapist, and the child and the parent will actually go together and do the session together. And that is really helpful because then the parent can go home and use those techniques with their child. Whereas if you were outside of the room, you wouldn't really know what was going on, so you couldn't really follow through at home. So I really like those types of therapies. Very quickly, let me tell you about how the sensory processing disorder affects our family. For us, our children are sensitive to everything. It is not just one thing that they are sensitive to, but our children are very different. Our youngest is all internal. He internalizes everything, whereas our oldest is more external. So if one of them is feeling overwhelmed, if it's our oldest, you will know, you will see it. If our youngest is feeling overwhelmed, he kind of bottles it all up. And so they are very different in the way that they process things. Our oldest son used to have a very difficult time with transitions, and he has gotten a lot better now. But I have also learned many techniques over the years, so it has helped. Our youngest is really right now, he is 5. He is really struggling with transitions right now. He wants to know what is happening next, what we're doing, where we're going. He feels like he needs to know it, or he feels out of control. So that's something he really struggles with. And he struggles with the external stimuli. It is very difficult for him. Over the years, we have tried using the headphones. He will wear a hat sometimes over his ears or a hood over his head. And we honestly just avoid noisy places because he doesn't enjoy them and it just overwhelms him. Our oldest son is definitely more sensitive when it comes to touch, and so he wears a lot of softer clothing. He wears like gym shorts a lot of the time because they have like an elastic waist and things like that. And he does wear jeans and other pants and things like that. But you know, when we're home, he's comfortable in those things, so that's what I buy for him, and he likes that a lot. And then our younger son, he likes to wear the same things all the time. He has a few articles of clothing that are his favorite. And so he just wears those a lot and he's comfortable in those. And you know, we homeschool, so that's perfectly fine. If he wants to wear the same things over and over again, it doesn't really matter for us. As far as light sensitivity, sight sensitivity, our younger son definitely does deal with that. He does not like the sun in his eyes. He gets very agitated very easily. And so obviously there are very simple ways to fix that. Stay in the shade, wear sunglasses, use an umbrella, things like that, where you can kind of just like block out the sun and he'll feel a lot better. So there are lots of simple ways that you can fix some of these things that are really difficult for your children. In an upcoming tip video, I am going to share some of the things that we use to help minimize that external stimuli. So please stay tuned for that. And all of the videos will be in the playlist, which I will have linked to below. If you have any questions for me, I am going to do a sensory processing disorder Q&A. So please go ahead and ask me any questions that you may have and put those in the comments down below. And at a later time, in a few weeks, I'm going to compile all of those questions and put together a video. So if there's anything that you want to know, please go ahead and comment down below with that question. If you enjoyed this video, please click that like button down below and don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.